A dire warning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are playing the Tier 8 Premium French battleship Republique with the space camo that makes the guns go pew pew. And there is a pro player ahead on the enemy team, an enemy cruiser, also Tier 8, but of the Italian variety. It's Chiligamez17 in the Brindisi on the enemy team. You, of course, know Chili Games. If you don't, look him up on YouTube. He and I became community contributors for World of Warships Legends at almost the same time. We go way back, but I think he plays the game a lot less than I do these days, so I never see him out there on the high seas until this game with the Republique. And we're going to have our work cut out for us because Chili Games is indeed a very good player. He's better at this game than I am, and anytime you see him on your team, you have to worry for your team's prospects of losing, particularly if you're playing on or just before the weekend, as I was in this game. And by the end of this thing, by the final 5 minutes, you're going to look at the number of ships on the red and blue teams and think to yourself, well, Xarkun, there's no way your team could lose this. But don't worry, they're going to try. They are going to give it their best effort to throw, and we're going to have to prevent that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about how. But another thing we should cover is what happens when you get into a game with somebody who is relatively famous in this community, like me or like Chili Games. You see them on the enemy team, what do you do about it? Well, I'll tell you what you don't do if you're the blue team. You don't concentrate all of your ships on the side of the map where the YouTuber or the streamer is. You can see here, my team has spread out quite nicely. Now, if you're on the YouTuber's team, another thing you don't do is take all of your ships and follow the YouTuber to one side of the map. You might think you're helping, but actually you're just hindering your chances of winning. And I think we've got a little bit of that kind of action going on the red team, because all we can see on this flank is the Dmitry Donskoy, who we have hit for a fair amount of damage so far, but now he's kiting away. We're still focusing him down, trying to do a little bit more damage. We've got a cruiser teammate of ours chiming in too, and he's actually taking a shot at that cruiser. But since the Donskoy is kiting and getting ever further away, and since the Republique's main guns are not the most accurate battleship guns known to man, we're really not going to be able to do much more work to this Dmitry Donskoy, but that's fine. There's really no reason for us to worry about dealing damage to him or sinking him if we can't. And with this shot, well, it becomes apparent that we're not going to get that chance here anytime soon. He's sailing out of our gun range. I think we're trying to keep him in focus for a little while longer, but that's mostly because we have nothing else of value really to do at this point. We've got a teammate in the Alpha Cap who is taking it. I think there's a cruiser lurking around the other side there that we might want to go deal with. But besides that cruiser inside or just outside of the Alpha Cap, I guess he's inside because it's contested, aside from him and this Donskoy, there's really no enemy presence on this flank, which leads me to believe that the rest of the red ships went over to the Charlie flank because that's where Chili is, and they see Chili there, they think, oh, Chili, he's kind of a recognizable name, right? I know him, I like him. What if we go over there and we help him? And maybe they are helping him. They have managed to take out 2 of our ships, to be fair, a cruiser and our only destroyer, which, should put us at a very distinct disadvantage. But will it? Well, let's keep seeing what happens. The Rochester comes out, he's broadside to us, but the build that we're running on the Republique doesn't exactly speed up the turret traverse. It's like 45 seconds, so we can't get the guns on target. That's fine. We're going to sail around the cap, always staying in our spawn. In situations like this, I think players might be tempted to push out into the enemy spawn, but when the entire enemy team is alive, it's usually not a good idea to do that. We're staying in our spawn. We should be able to get good shots on this Rochester here, and I'll tell you, it is amazing. The Rochester saw me through the islands there. He knew I was headed in this direction, so you would think object permanence would be a thing, and he'd be like, oh, there's a Republique over here that's got my broadside. Nope. Nope, he just gives it to me on a silver platter, and we're able to hit yet another citadel, bringing our damage total up just a little bit more to 42,000, which at this point is not entirely impressive, but we are going to get good damage by the end of this game, and this game's really not about the damage. Enemy destroyer, the Z46, I guess. Well, up until this point, he's survived. He hasn't really taken a cap. I don't know exactly what he's been doing, but for whatever reason now, he's inside of the alpha cap, about 2 grid squares away from a friendly battleship and a cruiser. He's got torpedoes on the battleship, but that's really not where you want to be in any kind of destroyer. I'm pretty confident that the cruiser inside of that alpha cap is going to be able to take out the Z46. Our good old amigo, the Dmitry Donskoy, has retreated to the far edge of the map. He's nowhere to be seen. That's fine. We don't chase kiting cruisers. That's how they become much more effective. If he had ripped my attention away, or the attention of any of my teammates, and we were chasing him down to the edge of the map, then, well, nobody would be here to shoot at this Z46, and he goes down. So suddenly, both teams are even on kills. They've each lost 3 ships of the same classes. It's very nice, actually. Battleship, cruiser, and destroyer gone from both the red and blue team. A nice sampling of the classes available in World of Warships Legends. And as for the state of the match, if we take a look at the minimap, we can see that my team is poised to take the alpha cap with no resistance whatsoever. We've got a cruiser in there who's almost certainly not spotted by anything, and well, okay, maybe he is spotted because he's getting reset by, I guess, the Dmitry Donskoy. Nevertheless, even if they want to still keep getting reset, I think it's very likely they take that cap. So we're going to go to the other side of the map now, because we've got a single solitary battleship parked outside the Bravo cap who's doing the common battleship tactic of sit still, reverse, bow tank the enemy, and wait for them to sail straight into you. A very effective tactic if you want to complain that the enemy team never gives you broadside. You gotta move to take it for yourself. In any case, that battleship is going to survive for a while and be kind of a bulwark compared to the rest of my team, so I shouldn't complain too much. Richelieu is giving us broadside on the other side of the map, so we're going to try to take advantage of that, but the random dispersion from the Republique says that's another citadel, so we're up to 90,000 damage done. We've got a Marco Polo sailing down the flank at our bow-tanking battleship. We're going to be turning in, I think, here toward the center of the map, so we can try to get our guns on the Marco Polo. Spotted Chiligamez briefly, but note we don't really care about that. Chili is not necessarily in a position where we're going to be able to easily deal with him, and we're not going to go out of our way to seek him out, because we're trying to win the game, not sink the YouTuber. Good advice for those of you who might find yourself in a game with Chili, or with me. Don't go out of your way trying to sink us. More often than not, it screws over your own team and doesn't actually help you win. Pommern and Marco Polo, though, they're going straight for that bow-tanking battleship in the Bravo cap, which is fine. This is Crossfire 101 here, because we're not in the same grid square as that battleship. In fact, we're a little further north. We've got a position on the map where we can get the broadsides of both the Pommern and the Marco Polo as they push in toward the bow-tanking Bravo battleship. We're putting ourselves behind the island, though, because the Marco Polo is, I think, behind that island and not able to shoot us from where we're at. One gun at a time versus the Pommern, who is apparently content and fine to give me broadside the entire time, allowing me to pen him with practically every shell. He's still got about 5,000 hit points left, but he should be going down here quite quick. Taking a look at Chiligamez over there, still deciding we are not going to shoot at him because that wouldn't be very fruitful. Pommern, though, looks like he might go down with this next salvo. Will he? Shells look actually fairly okay, and they do manage to take out the Pommern for what is, in fact, our first kill of the game. Enemy team, though, is now down to 3 ships. There's 5 minutes left in the game, and there's 6 ships left alive on my team, so you might be thinking to yourself, Xarkun, well now, would be the time for you to get more aggressive. Maybe aggressively push into Chili Games, try to get a one-on-one duel, and, see who comes out on top. But to that I say, absolutely not. This is World of Warships Legends, and one can never trust the blue team to play the way they need to in order to win. And the blue team's not going to do that here. Remember the bow-tanking battleship we've got in Bravo? Well, the Marco Polo is sailing straight for him. We're going to try to get the Marco Polo's broadside, but he's actually kind of angled toward that battleship and shooting at this one right here, who's pushing into the Kansas and giving him broadside. We don't want to make that same mistake, and the Kansas is actually giving us broadside, so he's a better shot. We're going to take it, but the Kansas does end up taking down the Iowa in front of us. So we had like 6 ships versus 3, right? Now we're down to 4 ships versus 3. The enemy's only ahead of us by 1. And 2 of the ships we've got left are cruisers, which could be killed by this Kansas. As we know, the Kansas is quite a scary battleship. At least its guns are scary. They should be scary for cruisers. So we really need to take this guy out. He's almost on no health, and he's being focused down by our cruisers. We end up getting an over-penetration on him, which is fine, but it's ultimately the cruisers who take him out. Now it's just down to Chile and this Marco Polo, so the question is, who do we focus on? Well, Marco Polo is again driving straight at that bow-taking battleship, so he's giving broadside, at least at this moment, to our position on the map. Looks like we're able to lob the shells over the island, so we will. But I think the Marco Polo is turning out. We don't get that good of a hit on him at all, just 3 overpens. And now this Iowa, I think it's an Iowa anyway. I hope it's an Iowa, not something like a Georgia, although it does kind of look a little bit Georgia-like. It's hard to tell at this distance. Anyway, they're in a brawl. The battleship is giving the Marco Polo broadside. Kind of think in this scenario, when you've got absolutely no HP versus a fairly full health battleship, the tactical maneuver would actually be to ram here at this point. Much more likely that the Marco Polo is going to finish this guy off with absolutely no health than the other way around. So if I were that blue guy, I think I would have rammed, because it looks like he is about to go down, and that's going to leave it in a 2v2 scenario with a very healthy Marco Polo and an almost full health Chili Games in the Brindisi versus me and a lone Tulsa. Now, the Tulsa is not a bad ship by any means, but it's not the most capable thing either, and it's on fairly low health. Chili Games' sap could be a real problem for it. Ultimately, the Marco Polo does end up taking out the battleship from Bravo, and now it's 2v2. So, see what I told you. 5 minutes left to go. 6 ships versus 3. We outnumber them 2-1. You might think to yourself, well, the game's in the bag. No, it's not. It never is in World of Warships Legends. You've got to play till the very end a lot of the time. Luckily, Chili is on fairly low health now. He's stationary. I do think our guns should overmatch his armor practically everywhere. I think the Brindisi has 30mm plating on the sides, so, well, they would overmatch if we got more than 1 shell to land, but Chile is presenting quite the unattractive target, so I don't think that's gonna actually happen. Looks like he's about to go forward, so we're gonna account for that and send another salvo his way. This one, I think, accounting for his turn and his moving forward is a little bit more effective. We actually get a full pen and do maybe about 5k to him. So we're up to 150,000 damage done with less than 1 minute left to go. But take note of the points. We are ahead of the enemy team, not by much, by about 4 or 5 points. But that means we've won this game as long as nobody sinks. The Tulsa is like, hey, take the Delta Cap, that's really important. And I'm like, no, it's not. Look at the points. We don't need to take the Delta Cap, and you certainly don't need to get spotted and sunk by Chile. So hopefully he's going to listen to that. He is pushing toward the Delta Cap unnecessarily. Again, we're ahead on points. The only way the enemy team could win is if they sink us, and the Marco Polo was last seen sailing away from the direction of the Bravo Cap, not toward it. So with 10 seconds left to go, he's not even going to be able to get into that cap and stop our accrual of points. That Tulsa is really intent on sinking Chili Games, which makes me a little bit nervous, but the game ends before Chili can take that guy out, which I think he probably would have if it went on for a little bit longer. But there we go. We win versus Chiligamez17, and we do it by doing our job in the battleship and completely ignoring Chili Games because he didn't spawn on our side of the map. Good advice for anybody who finds themselves facing a YouTuber or a streamer on the enemy team. Hope you take it into advisement next time you do. Hope you enjoyed the video as well. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and give the video a like, of course. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.